Welcome back to another Tim Talks Christian Rock. Tim Ristow here. Welcome to another episode in my interview series where I talk with musicians, artists, producers, and the like, fellow creatives in general, in music, in the Christian and rock and metal scene in particular. Talk about their music, their creativity, and their faith, and much, much more. Today, my guest is the legendary Dale Thompson, vocalist and writer extraordinaire for the band Bride. While perhaps best known for he and his brother Troy's work and involvement with Bride, Dale has also has an extensive career as a solo artist and recording with a wide range of other artists and bands, including his own Dale Thompson and the Boon Dogs, albums with them, Perpetual Paranoia, Dabster Gentleman, Swingle and Thompson Ordained, and many, many more. Dale is also a writer and painter. We'll talk a little bit about that today. But above all else, he is a dedicated Christian who has no qualms about proclaiming the gospel message. So today I'm beyond excited and simply quite honored and humbled to welcome Dale Thompson to the show. Dale, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's so great to talk with you. So you were born in West Point, Kentucky. Tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up in Kentucky. What are maybe some of your earliest memories there growing up?
Just typical, 1960s, 70s childhood. Bike riding, baseball, the woods, out in the woods hunting at an early age. Without a chaperone. Probably should not have been hunting at those young ages with a shotgun, but that's just
What were
the
you
way.
hunting, by the way?
Mainly squirrels. I would hunt squirrels. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
too little at the time to drag a deer out, so I would go and get my quota of the squirrels for the day. You get up 4 o'clock in the morning, wander out in the dark, cross over a couple of barbed wire fences. Try not to fall into the pond, go up a hill, go into the woods, wait for the sun to rise, and then, listen for the noises of the woods,
Yeah.
We don't really have forests on here where we live. We have woods. So I don't know what the difference is. I should study constantly. I should know that. But yeah, we would do that. My brother Troy and I, I was more of a hunter than he was, I guess, but we played a lot of baseball. My favorite sport was always baseball, so we played all through Little League and what they called Babe Ruth or Pony League.
Yeah.
And he was probably more athletic in that field, And then later on, I got into boxing and weightlifting, and Troy was doing track for the school, and I was just being a gym junkie. So. But yeah, growing up was great. We had good friends. We had a lot of cousins in the neighborhood we rode bikes with. Had a couple little mini bikes we rode, and just grew up not realizing there was much outside of West Point, Kentucky.
Yeah. So a lot of time spent outdoors, and it sounds like a lot of time with family as well. Big part of your background.
Our families in the early days was quite tight. Played a lot of music. I learned to play guitar when I was probably 5 years old, and Troy was playing the fiddle at the time, entering county fair contest, and about 5 years old, he was up there playing the fiddle, winning ribbons and stuff at the county fairs, and yeah, so we grew up in a musical family. Had a cousin that played down in Nashville some, and then my dad, and all of his brothers played, and they'd get together and have big musical, big cacophony of strings going on. So I knew music from a very early age.
What were some of your earliest musical influences? I know you were involved, I guess, in some gospel bands or things like that, or exposed to some gospel bands.
Yeah, mainly we grew up playing Southern gospel type music. Way early on was just Southern gospel in general and bluegrass. But As time went on, I was introduced to the likes of people like the Imperials and um, some of those Rusty Goodman, the Goodmans, Don Francisco and Dallas Holmes and Keith Green and just a lot of those guys back in the way early days. And then it kind of went forward a little bit to the Larry Normans, the Randy Stonehills, the Daniel Amoses, the Servants, the second chapter of Acts, Phil Keaggy, people like that. And how I got to what I do today is beyond me because that was my gospel influences. My other influences weren't even rock; they were all country.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, uh, Charlie Rich, Kenny Rogers, Conway Twitty,
Oh,
Waylon
yeah.
Jennings, Earl Haggard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Know
I mean,
them
just all,
well.
all of those guys. That's Johnny Paycheck. I grew up with a country background to go into this heavy, crazy stuff that we do now.
Well, and clearly there's influences that have crossed over there. We'll get to that for sure. Was faith or going to church a part of your family life growing up, and what was that like?
We grew up in a Methodist church, United Methodist, and we were there until the United Methodist organization decided that the church no longer was required because it wasn't bringing in enough money for the church, even though it did supply a need there in the community. The problem with those type of churches is they rotate their pastors so often nobody can build a church. So it's always in a constant state of flux. So every time we would get a pastor that people got behind, they'd move them on somewhere else. So the church was eventually, after many, many, many years, torn down. My only regret is that I didn't steal the church bell out of it during the deconstruction of the church. I would have liked to have that church bell because we used to ring it on Sundays, and I would have, if I had been
Wow.
older, I would have stole that thing right out of the bell tower. Uh,
Was it an
but
old one,
yeah,
like an authentic one, or had some history behind it or something? Or
well, I'm not for sure, but it was just
yeah,
something we rang every Sunday, and
yeah,
parents would have to drag us away from the bell rope because church needed to start. We were too busy taking turns ringing it.
that's
But
awesome.
yeah, and then my cousin started a Pentecostal church, and we all thought he had lost his mind. We thought, well, it's not night and day. It's two
Yeah,
different
right.
worlds. And so we visited his church for a while, but it was just a bit rambunctious for what we were accustomed to, and just a little bit out of control at times. Ended up joining my grandfather's church. I have a lot of preachers in my family, so my grandfather was Church of God minister in Custer, Kentucky.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
joined his church, and that's where I went and was licensed and stuff back in the day as a minister through his
Okay.
church, holding revivals and things of that nature out of his church. But yeah,
Yeah.
so ended up in the Church of God at that point until he passed away.
Was Troy kind of along a similar path, or did he go a little bit different path, faith wise?
He's been down the same arduous road that I have been down. uh, and we have both experienced the good, the bad, and the ugly of religion.
Yeah.
We are cynics. We were made cynics, so it's like um, believe nothing, question everything. Now, um, so if it coincides with what we know in our hearts to be true, we'll accept it, and if it contradicts what we know in our hearts to be true, we won't entertain it. We've just been down that road, and somebody asked me the other day about church, and I said, "Well, I graduated that a few years ago, so I'm allowing the Holy Spirit, or inviting the Holy Spirit, and accepting the Holy Spirit's teaching on a daily basis, with fellowship with others, of course, but
Right.
uh, more so than sitting under a pastor at this time. I'm sitting under the power of the Holy Spirit to lead me, guide me, and direct me."
That's interesting. I think there's without getting too far off track, I think there is a tendency towards more of that these days. I don't know, maybe there's a split. I hear a lot of people moving more towards or back towards kind of traditional churches, and then also those that are really just looking to stay extremely focused on Scripture and that relationship with Christ. Post pandemic, I think a lot of that has certainly come into play. There's been this shift somewhat.
Yeah, even before the COVID thing hit, um, my wife and I in New Zealand were more focusing on our own personal relationship with the Lord than with the congregation. Now I have a great network of hardcore Christian friends, on the internet and stuff, and we often get into some pretty heavy subjects and stuff. People that I can talk to without debate and argument. Um,
Right.
I've gotten to the point now where I don't debate anything. I won't argue anything. I won't even entertain it for a second if I sense that somebody is, you know, thinking they want to take the gloves off and do me in.
Right.
I just don't have time for it. I'll be
No.
62 years old this year, so a lot of these guys are whippersnappers. So
Yeah.
they don't know what they're talking about. They've not been there, not done that.
No, they're just looking for a fight, and that's it. There's no winning the battle in those
No,
situations.
and that's the key. There's no winning. It's
Right.
turmoil and chaos for the sake of I don't know, because even if pride's involved, you get your pride stepped all over because most
Yeah.
people come unprepared to fight anyway. They're going
Right.
on pure adrenaline. That doesn't last long. So
No. Well, and you brought up a great word, chaos. Satan's usually in the middle of all that, trying to breed and spread chaos. So
yep.
when you sense those situations coming, it's always best to avoid them or politely step out or something. But I hear you
Yeah.
on that. I know you mentioned some already, but were there in particular any bands, artists, albums that were influential for you early on? I know offline we had talked a while back about a blues artist. I forgot to write his name down. That was really influential for you. But were there some specific albums that really you were listening to a lot back in the day?
Uh, as far as names of albums, I can't recall but one that sticks out tremendously for me.
Yeah,
But before I mention that one, I am intensely influenced by Tom Waits. He's to me beyond artistic. He's like the Mozart of whatever it is he does. He's just the man is can sing and write and
yeah,
and he's as weird as you want him to be. So that's cool. And and a lot of the old blues artists like Howlin' Wolf, I studied a lot of
Mm,
blues with like Lightning Hopkins, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf,
right.
people like that. But then later when I had a friend named Glenn Michael Sherrard, and he's passed away now, but he was really progressive, not only in his beliefs because of the background he came out of, but just his creativity as well. He was a classically trained flutist, and he was writing
Interesting.
a composition for the Book of Revelation when I met him, and he never finished it before he passed away. But he introduced me to an album, a Kerry Livgren album in 1980, I think it was, Seeds of Change. That
Yes.
album, when I heard it, there was two tracks that stood out, and both were sang by the same guy, Ronnie James Dio. Once I heard Ronnie James Dio sing, there was nothing like it I'd ever heard or have heard since. I mean, there's great singers: Bruce Dickinson, Ian Gillan, Rob Halford,
Hmm.
tons and tons. Glenn Kaiser, just boatloads.
Yeah.
But Ronnie had something that nobody else had, not even Freddie Mercury or any of them, and that
Yeah.
captivated me. And I wasn't even doing that style of music. I was just like, how's that coming out of this guy? The passion and
Right.
the tones, and he was just brilliant. And that set me on a completely different course at that time to pursue because I knew God wanted me to do something different than the hokey country CCM stuff that I was doing. Because I had by that time I had discovered a distortion box, but I had it hooked to my acoustic guitar because I didn't have an electric guitar. So shortly after that, I bought a bunch of Rickenbacker guitars and some Rickenbacker bass guitars, and I was playing bass and guitar for a while. And I just thought the Rickenbacker looked cool. I didn't know they sounded like crud when it comes to heavy metal. So I had this twangy sound going on, and so eventually, I just prayed, and I'm like, God, I think you want me to do something similar to this style. So I said, the only way that's going to happen is if you change my voice dramatically. you know, I said because it's not working. I had tried out for the heaviest band here in Louisville at the time called Witness, and they basically said, you can't sing this. You're wasting your time. So they did me a favor, so I was glad they did that. I was mad at the time because I was like, I really went in there and belted it out, and I'm sure it was horrendous. And so anyway, I ended up putting on all sorts of different bands to listen to from back in that day, trying to learn how to sing. And I taught myself how to sing rock and roll because I wasn't closest thing I was to rock and roll was Elvis, and that was old rock.
Right.
Uh, yeah, so it took me a while to get it sorted, and even on the first 3 or 4 albums, I was still trying to find my footing. I listened to a couple songs we're going to do from Show No Mercy and Live to Die last night. I hadn't listened to it forever. I don't even know what was going on there. I mean, I had no script. I was just going for it, and whatever came out, we recorded.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, I can't hit those notes today. Those are most
Right.
people in the world can't hit those notes
Yeah.
the way that I was hitting them. And so we're going to do a couple of those songs, which is going to be quite interesting with my new lower voice. Drop
Awesome.
a couple of octaves, but
Well, that's
yeah,
that's I know, it's part of aging, of course, too. Our voice changes throughout life. I know that's so true. I think of this is not metal, but Greg X Volts, for example, who I think as he's aged, I think his voice actually sounds better. You go back and listen to those early Petra recordings, and of course he hits those high notes on so many things, but yet I really think that maturity in the voice just has improved his sound, and I suspect that's going to be very true for you too. And going back to revisit some of those first albums.
yeah, it will be. I never had a true clean voice. I always had to manufacture it anyway. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to sing at one certain point. I wanted to sound like Steve Perry or Steve Walsh from Kansas, and then I would practice their
Uh,
song and couldn't come close to doing what they did. So then you put on AC/DC and you're like, oh, I can do this. So it's a whole different place that comes out of your throat.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about you and Troy formed Matrix in about 1982, if my facts are correct. Um, how did that come about? Was that y'all's really first band, and why did you guys decide to move forward with that?
We actually had a band before that called Core Band, and I never knew how to spell it, so that's why we dropped it. It was I didn't know what we were actually saying by calling ourselves Core Band.
Right.
Um, and we had a drummer named Joey Johnson, and I was on bass guitar, and Troy was playing guitar, and then we would switch back. And I think I played some guitar on in that too, but we wanted to take things a little bit further than where we had grew up, and I don't know how we found Joey. Troy might remember. Probably, I mean, we didn't have internet, so it was just probably through word of mouth. But the
Yeah.
next thing you know, we had this band formed, and Joey was gone, and we brought in Steve Childers, and then we had this band formed, and we were rehearsing in Steve's parents' basement, and his mother would scream the whole time we played that we were playing too loud, and they would fight back and forth, and she would run off upstairs, and I would feel awkward. Uh, but we would stay and rehearse another 2 hours. So
Right.
Matrix went out and did some shows, and then a promoter named Dorn uh, uh, Repper. What's his last name? Dorn Repper. I mean, I'm probably saying it wrong. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get Kentucky upbringing. Anyway,
Yeah.
he contacted me from Pennsylvania and asked if we would like to open for the Dango Band, and they were
Oh,
doing
nice.
an album release. They were down from Canada doing an album release, and then later on, I found out most of the bands that I really like are from Canada. So that's maybe we could have played in Canada more.
Yeah.
But we opened for the Dango Band, the record company, which I won't mention because they did nothing for us. They didn't like us, and but the fans went nuts and bought everything that we had before the Dango Band came out on stage. Uh, so the record company saw that and they saw dollar signs and they decided to sign us and then rip us off for 3 years. Uh, and that launched "Show No Mercy, Live to Die," and "Silence Is Madness,"
Yeah.
which we learned some hard knocks being with those guys. But yeah, it was great to play with the Daniel Band. That was the first big Christian band that we've ever played with. Was the Daniel Band, and that's pretty good company there. So
Without a doubt, that's one of the first Christian bands I saw live when I was in high school. I think they opened for Res Band
oh yeah.
on either Hostage Tour or Between Heaven and Hell. I forgot which one it was, but that was one of the first bands. I was in youth group and we went to that show, and I just remember, oh my gosh, this is Christian rock. I love it.
I mean,
So
the
Daniel,
songs were great, the vocals were great, great lyrics, great guitar playing. There
yeah,
was a band called The Way. I don't know if you have heard of them, but they were called The
no,
Way. Best Southern rock Christian album band of all times, and that was way
yeah,
back then. And for some reason, the Dango Band sort of reminded me a little bit of them, even though The Way had a little bit more of a country thing to it. But
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it was just an honor to play with them because I had their album. It was kind of weird. I'm like, oh, I've got their album, but we never thought of
yeah,
taking the album and having them sign it either. So,
right, yeah,
I mean,
not as
we just didn't know what to do.
yeah. I hear you.
We're
Well,
pretty
now,
naive still.
hey, I'm right there with you. In my own way. The Matrix, the band name, the Matrix, and of course the band name Bride. Where did those come from? How did y'all develop those names?
Well, we were called Matrix for a couple of demos, and then Troy saw that there was a jazz band called Matrix because Troy's more of I wouldn't say intellectual, but Troy is very learned. He's into math, and I mean he can tell you things that you probably hadn't even thought of, but probably don't need to
Right.
know, but he knows them. Um, so he's educated. Let's put it like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
gotcha. You're a classy
I,
guy.
I I didn't do all that because of my good looks. So anyway, so we had Matrix, and he said there's a jazz band called Matrix, so we should probably drop the name Matrix. So we were
Yeah.
signing with this record company, and we told them, said, well, you can't sign Matrix because there's already a Matrix, and there could be a problem. So we want to change the name to Bride, for the Bride of Christ, adorned
Yeah.
coming down out of heaven. And they had no problem with that, so they just took a pen and scribbled off the word matrix and hand wrote in bride, and we signed it. So,
That's awesome. Well, I think I've got the somewhere. I've got those Matrix recordings here somewhere. There's a CD I know y'all have out of that early Matrix recordings. Let's see if I can.
yeah, it's pretty cool because I can't remember who did it. I think it was either Brad Hamilton with M8 Records or Matt
Here
Hunt
it
or
is.
somebody. Yeah, did a bunch of these.
Into the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had so many releases and re-releases. We
Right.
are there's a word to use for that, but I won't use it because it sounds good. But no, we've been redone a lot.
Yes. Lot of compilations and
Well, once you sell your album to somebody, you pretty much give them permission to do whatever they want to do, so they can exploit you however they want to. And pretty much, you get a check, and it says, "Here's your $100 for this album. We're going to do 1,000 albums of it. Don't you worry, we don't make any money on this." It's like,
yeah.
yeah, here's our $100 to split, Troy. This is great. Let's go
Yeah.
down to White Castle. It's
Right. Yeah. Yeah, they're not making any money off it. Yeah, that's why would they do it then if they
yeah. Everybody wants something for nothing.
did you ever train? I know you mentioned kind of being self-taught vocally. Did you ever train or do any type of extensive vocal training, or you just kind of kept learning as you were going?
I have never practiced vocals. I have never did scales. I have never screamed into a pillow. I've never warmed up. Before a show, before recording. Um, God bless Ken Tamplin, but it's never worked for me.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's much more successful than I am, so maybe I should have went his route. But um, maybe he could teach me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm too old now, probably, but and I
Never
need
too old.
$100 I would have to pay him to teach me
Yeah.
something new. Um, I love Ken though. Ken's been a good friend over the years, but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
we Troy's classically trained. Troy's taken all sorts of lessons. He plays piano, plays mandolin, guitar. I mean, he plays everything on the album except drums. I don't know if I'm too lazy. Didn't think I needed it. I heard an interview once with Ann Wilson of Heart. She said she never
Yeah.
took any vocal lessons because she was afraid it would take away from her voice. And
Mm.
people seem to like my voice, and I didn't think I could get any better than what I was anyway. So if
Yeah.
people weren't complaining, I think people
Yeah.
complain a little bit now because they want to hear a 30-year-old Dale do some sort of vocal acrobatic thing.
Right.
But if I could just do a really good, powerful scream, I'm happy with that, regardless if I go to the stratosphere with it or not anymore. I mean, because if I hit
Yeah.
a big note, somebody comes along and hits one even higher. So it's really
Right.
not a contest. I mean, it was probably in the beginning, when we learned
Yeah.
we could do that, we'd hear something
Yeah.
and go, oh, I'm going to beat that. Oh, he held a
Yeah.
15-second note. I'm going to beat that. Now it's like you just try to breathe and get through a song.
I love it. Well, yeah, and of course there's a lot of nostalgia going on for people too. Like, you mentioned those first three albums, which certainly are classics in their own right, and Christian metal scene without a doubt. Of course, Snakes in the Playground, huge classic there. And we'll get to that. But first of all, tell me a little bit about your brother Troy. I mean, what's your relationship been like? Obviously, you guys have been able to create music together, work together, perform together. Um, Tell me about your brother. What's he like?
Troy is one of the most hardworking people that I've ever met. He's an entrepreneur. He's retired from Fort Knox. He runs a drone company, a catering business. He chops his own wood. He's a man's man. You might see him on stage and go, "Oh, look at that skinny guy up there. That guy will kick your butt if you mess with him." Uh, he's not to be reckoned with. In other words,
Right.
he and I have been best friends ever since we were little, and even when I picked on him when he was little and stuff, being a big brother, and who's this new guy, coming in
Right.
on my turf. But yeah, and I'm living with Troy now because virtually I'm homeless. So we don't have a place right now, so we're staying here at his place, and he's accommodating, and his wife's a culinary chef, and we're eating good, which I'm on a diet. So but yeah,
Excellent.
it's he's been there for me. We've never had a single argument. We've never fought. We've not always agreed, but we know how to compromise with one another. If we're writing a song and I say, "Man, that thing you just did, do it like three more times." He doesn't say, "No, I kind of like it the way it is." He just changes it three more times.
Yeah.
So he's writing all the music, of course, and on the last three albums, or on the last four albums since I was in New Zealand, it's been more him with the music. Before that, I often interjected things that I thought would sound better, or things that he should do. Now we're together again in one room, so now we can collaborate a little bit more. Over the years that we did these albums while I was in New Zealand, we never recorded together, like face to face or even screen to screen. He would send
Yeah.
me music and I would put lyrics and melodies to it, send it to him, and he would say, that is not as catchy as it could be. You think you got another melody that you can do? And I'd try new melodies, and sometimes he would float me some melodies and say, using these words here, da 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 da. Um, what if you did it like this? So then I would do it like that. So now what we're doing, and not on the new album because the new album was recorded before I came back in November. What we're doing in the future, we'll be sitting in the same room writing again. So music, we want to change again even after this album. after this double album we're releasing. We're going to make another bold change musically and see where that goes. So it's no reason
Awesome.
to keep doing the same thing over and over again. You know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Have you guys been real competitive over the years?
No, because he could beat me at everything except boxing and weightlifting. He could outrun me. He could run backwards and run faster than me. He was a triple
Yeah.
jumper in high school, so that was trivia. Forget it. He's got me on that, but he couldn't bench what I benched, so I had him there. So, and always teasing because we used to play racquetball a lot, and I was a decent racquetball player, but he was really really good. And the last time we played, the very last game, I beat him. And I told him, I said, I'll
Nice.
never play you again in racquetball because I'll always be the champ. So
Exactly.
I am now the better racquetball player.
That's
So yeah,
awesome. Yeah, you can hold that over his head for the rest of his life. Yeah.
yeah, because I didn't want to try to make a make a comeback, and lose my
Right.
title.
Yeah. Exactly. Talk a lot about the creative process here on the show too, and you guys have had the advantage of having worked together in a room and coming up with songs and music, and then having worked remotely for so many years and albums. Which do you prefer? Which do you find for you guys works the best, or they both have their pros and cons?
Well, they probably more cons not working face to face because it takes longer face to face to do something because I got lazy and I started like putting things together way quickly. And I was probably creating melodies that they could have been better, not just with Bride, but even with some of the solo projects that I've done. Probably could have been better if I'd have taken a bit more time and really thought them through. But I think now in the future, um, well, I mean, especially with this double album, we've knocked this thing out of the park. I listened to it the other day, and I'm just like, I can't even believe that's me. It's like that's like this thing is gold. Um,
Well, let's talk
but
about that since you're bringing it up.
yeah,
Um, this double album, Vipers and Shadows, correct?
yeah.
We can go back and talk about the past stuff in a bit, but tell me how this album came about. It's your first Bride's first double album. Talk about some of the themes and ideas in it, how the project came about, and when you guys anticipate it might come out.
Well, this is our 40th year as Bride, so so our Genesis was 1985, I reckon. So this is our 40th year. So I wanted to do something special. So it was my idea to do a double album because I knew we always had so many songs that we were throwing songs away. And I'm like, let's take these songs that we would have normally said we don't want to take. Let's go ahead and make them better. Let's take the time and make them better. And then that way we can include them because we're going to give everybody 20 songs on this album that are all in the Bride style. No weirdo songs thrown in that people are like, what were they thinking? There's no artsy, weird strangeness that people will either super love or just skip over.
Right.
It's Bride from top to finish. We've ranked all the songs ourselves. Uh, Troy and I, we don't have anything below an 8. So that's us being
Nice.
hard on ourselves. We don't have any 10s in our opinion, but we have a lot of 9s and 8s. But that is us being critical
Right.
because you can always think you can do better. But yeah, we put this thing together. I had stacks and stacks of lyrics, but I was using a lot of lyrics with other bands because I recorded 16, 18 different bands plus multiple projects with some bands,
Yeah.
with Dapster Gentleman and Iron 501 and Haunted No More. Some of my best lyrics went to Haunted No More. So I had this little set of lyrics set over to the side for Bride, and I kept tapping into them because I needed lyrics. So I was dwindling my Bride stash. But in the end, I ended up writing some more lyrics, and we ended up with 20 just magnificent songs. Uh, Troy's guitar playing on this album is it's going to blow your mind. It's just really creative, very tasteful, extremely thought through, and we're using the same players that we used last time. It's gone down into Brazil, so it's in Brazil now. Drums are done. The album's being mixed right now. So everything's been recorded. So we should have it in a month, maybe month and a half. I think it will be physical copies,
Yeah.
and all the pre-orders can be sent out. They'll be sent out first, all signed, and then unfortunately, people that didn't pre-order don't get theirs signed. That's we just a lot of work, and people
Yeah.
that what the pre-orders do for us, because this is a self-release. We're not going through a record company, not going through Retro or Rocks or Girder with this. What the pre-orders do is help us pay our expenses on the album, because we have to pay certain costs, and that kind of help finance the album. And then we had other financial people who actually donated to the album to help us. One guy in particular, Mike Leeson, who came through here at the last minute and made things good for us. That was incredible. Mike's been instrumental in supporting our band and helping us through the years, just single-handedly doing stuff for us. It's crazy. But there's a lot of other people, with Tony Pedley and just a lot of people have just contributed. I can't remember all the names off the top of my head.
Sure.
But, people are still behind the band, so I think they're going to love this double album. The artwork was done by the same guy, Raphael, that did the Here Is Your God. And
Yeah, incredible artwork. Oh my gosh. Phenomenal
what
cover.
what we did with that is Raphael come up with this great design, but we didn't like the snakes. So I created that snake in the middle of it, that tribal looking piece, and said,
Yeah.
Raphael, can you incorporate that tribal piece in there somehow? I thought it was going to be some little thing in the corner, because I just thought it was cool. If you wanted to get a tattoo, that'd be a cool
Yeah.
tattoo. And then he put it as the whole cover, and I'm like, voila, perfect, man. I said, you nailed it. So
That's
so
nice.
once I showed him that, he had a vision. But yeah, I mean, he's got it all designed up. It's going to be really nice.
Do you tend to write like that, the theme Vipers and Shadows, did that come out of the collection of songs after written? Did you have that title, that theme in mind from the beginning? How does that develop with you? And the second part of that question, do you guys do lyrics first, then music, or music first, then lyrics? How does that process work for y'all?
Well, I have a boatload of lyrics still in my computer that I'll tap into. I was writing a rap album, so I can I can go in there and get all sorts of rhymes. Not that anybody would want to hear it, but I was just writing it myself. Um, but Troy creates the music on the spot, so he doesn't have like catalogs of music that he's recorded. They sort of come at the same time, I guess. Now I have to adjust lyrics for uh, for his music. What was the first part of that question?
Oh, the album title and theme, Vipers and Shadows,
Oh,
did that come out of the
uh,
collection of songs, or did you develop that first?
that come out of the clear blue because I didn't know what to call it. Some people want
Yeah.
me to call it double barrel. Uh, some people said like doppelganger, like Daniel Amos, and we had all
Right.
these cliches. And I'm like, let's just stick with the snakes theme that we've ran with for whatever
Yeah.
reason. We had snake eyes, we had snakes in the playground,
Right.
and, and I regret calling our one album "Are You Awake" because I kind of come up with "Are You Awake," not even thinking about the woke movement. Right? I didn't even.
Right.
That was not my intention, and
Right.
it turned out. I don't know. It's like
It
the
was
album
prophetic,
flopped.
Dale.
I guess so. Well, our album. To be honest, we've had some really bad album titles and bad album covers in the past. So I don't know what Vipers and Shadows mean. Actually, a friend of my brother, who is another brainiac, who's actually an astronaut. He,
Really?
yeah, he come up with that. We put it out to all the fans. What we doing? It's called. A couple fans had some good ideas, but then Brian come up with what about Vipers and Shadows? And I'm like, good enough. Let's just stop with that.
I
And
love it.
there's nowhere on the album I don't believe the word viper or shadows even appear.
Yeah.
And there's no themes of snakes. I don't really know what the theme of the album is. It's just a collection of individual songs
Yeah.
that at the time I thought I was writing something pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, as a spiritual theme, Vipers and Shadows both. I'm sure can be reflected in a lot of things. It's broad enough in some sense that I'm sure we'll all be looking for elements of meaning and symbolism in that reflect that. We'll come up with it for you as we listen to it.
Well, I used to pretend. I used to pretend that they all had some. That everything I did was had some sort of deeper meaning, and if people didn't get it because they weren't deep enough. But now that I
Right.
look back, it's they. Most of the songs probably weren't as deep as what I pretended they were. So a lot of a lot of it was just me just having a bad day and writing about it. So it's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, some of the best songs come from that emotional well, or from just our own personal stories that we're reflecting on. Bride, of course, has a rich history. As I mentioned, of course, Snakes in the Playground is considered a highlight, a classic by many. I love Silence is Madness, and I love Drop. Even I love Here Is Your God. I mean, I just love so much of y'all's work. Of course, those first three albums are great, but I love your later stuff too. What album or albums still resonate for you in the Bride discography?
probably Snakes because we've played so many songs off of that one in Kinetic Faith. Lyrically, I've always liked This Is It because it was a transition for Bride at the time. Unfortunately, the production on This Is It was compromised by an engineer whose wife was insane, who kept
Mm.
interrupting our recording sessions. But This Is It has some incredible lyrics. But I think probably Snakes in the Playground because that was the time when I went out and I sang with Stryper, and there was rumors that I was going to be Stryper's new singer, and I almost committed to it. But they were going through a transition at the time, so Robert had already told the world that I was their new singer, and it was in Circus Magazine, Parader Magazine. Everybody was reporting Dale Thompson leaves Bride to join Stryper. So I had to
Right.
call Robert and say, I'm sorry, Robert, but I just feel like I've got got to stick with Bride for now. It's just, and it was for the best. That way I didn't have to get kicked out when Michael come back.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so I saved myself some embarrassment there. But
Are you and Stryper still good, or did that create any
no,
contentiousness? Or no?
no, it didn't. I
Good.
saw them in New Zealand not too long ago, and we hung out and stuff. And we are touring with Stryper in Brazil in June. So yeah, it hasn't been announced yet, but it's going to be announced this week. So
Okay.
yeah, so we'll be with them in Narnia in Brazil in June. So we're doing dates now.
Fantastic.
So
Wow. I
yeah,
would love to
so
see that.
that's yeah, it's just going to be good to reconnect. I'm hoping that we're the opening act because the cool thing is the opening act only has to play 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
then you can get in the van and go back to the hotel, and you don't have to stay all night, and it's perfect. So
True.
I can get to bed early. I'm like a
Can't
9 o'clock guy, It's like,
I hear you, and I'm getting there too. I'm in my mid 50s, moving into my late 50s, and I feel the nights more. I can't stay up so late anymore. Um,
yeah. So yeah,
you
we get on great with Stryper and those, and
Stryper.
and and I'm not for sure if we've ever played with Narnia or not. It'd be interesting to see them, and if they can tell me if we've ever played together because I can't remember.
Yeah, you guys have played with a lot of bands over the years, and I
Yeah,
mean
we just toured with Petra in October back in Brazil. So yeah,
that's
we did a whole
awesome.
tour. With what's his name, John. Dang it.
John Schlitt, yeah.
Yeah.
Did,
It's funny because me and John were doing. They wanted us to do these promotions. We were in the
yeah,
airport doing promotions for the next show.
yeah.
So we're hey, this is John Schlitt, Dale Thompson, and John he taps me and he goes, "You better let me do this because you mumble." I said, "What?" He goes, "You mumble when you talk." I said, "I do." He goes, "Yeah." So he started doing it and he screwed it all up. I'm looking at him like I mumble, but you can't remember what we're supposed to be doing.
So
It
you
was
had
kind
to.
of funny.
That's awesome. You had to step
Yeah.
in and finish it for him.
We ended up not doing it at all.
Oh, really? That's too funny.
Yeah.
Um, when do you think Bride was or is at its best?
on stage.
Mm.
We're a live band. I do believe that in those years when we had Rick Foley as bass player, Jerry McBroom on drums, and of course Troy and I, that we were untouchable as a live band. It was nobody wanted to play with us. We were told multiple times we'll never open for you again, or you will never open for us again, because we came out just like Mike Tyson used to, and we threw caution to the wind, and we just went for it. And I'd like to get that back. It's hard when I'm got two knee braces on, two ankle braces on, an elbow brace, and my orthopedic stockings on to hobble out and to put forth that same energy. But
Right. Yeah.
uh, but I'm walking more every day, so had a
Yeah.
lot of
How's your
surgery
health
stuff.
doing? How are you feeling these days?
Yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah.
I've got osteoporosis, so the through my whole body. I've got arthritis. Wear a back brace. It's to get around knee stuff. So it's from years of weightlifting and boxing and stuff, and just abusing my body. Somebody said must be from your stage diving. I probably only stage dove maybe a dozen times my whole life. They were some ridiculous dives, stupid dives, but that didn't tear me up. It was just a physical wear and tear of no pain, no gain,
Yeah.
and just going for it. So I'm paying for it now. Last night, I'm walking around with my crutch again. But I've had three hand surgeries the past 12 months, knee replacement, appendix removed. I mean, you name it, man.
Mm.
I've been had it. So I'm becoming the metal man. Putting metal pieces in me everywhere.
Literally playing
Yeah.
metal and becoming
Yeah.
metal.
I mean, I'm ready to go at any time. Don't get me wrong, but I'd like to stick around and at least get this tour out of the way. So,
Well, let's talk
but
a little bit more about the tour too. About coming up. Well, first of all, I know I've heard the Black Kiss off of Vipers and Shadows. I know you guys have released at least a sample of that, which you describe as kind of a power ballad. Great song,
and
love it.
that's not the mix. That's not the mixed version either. That's got
Okay,
fake drums on that one. So
okay.
yeah.
So, but still a great example I can tell of what's to come. So the album will come out, and then y'all are going to be performing at Immortal again this year. You
Yes.
performed last year. That
August the 30th, Immortal Fest is the festival to play. It has been for us because it sort of relaunched us once we played back in the States, and people are still talking about it. So
yeah,
we're privileged to be able to headline on that Saturday night. So it's going to be a wonderful time reconnecting with all the other bands and seeing everybody. So
yeah, fantastic. Let's talk briefly about Boon Dogs albums because man, those are some of my favorite. I have
called
new Boon
Smoke
Dogs
and
coming out.
Mirrors.
I have this one here, which is a great album too. I see red. But yeah, tell us about the new album.
New album, a lot of new players. Austin Dodig is now my partner in that, and we are
Awesome.
marching forward. He's also mixing the Bride EP that's coming out, 8 songs. So people are actually going to be getting 28 songs if they want. So Austin's mixing that one. That's the songs that we decided to put on Lost Reels 4.
Okay.
So we always do a Lost Reels, and this is Lost Reels 4. And then
Yeah.
so that the Boon Dogs is called Smoke and Mirrors, so that'll be
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
on Girder. We've got The World Will Burn. It's coming out on Girder. That album is called Burn Baby Burn. I've got the Swingle and Thompson Ordained. We've got a new one coming out. I don't know when. Uh, Not of this world, but I've got an album coming out.
Yeah.
Uh, Not of this world. That's coming out. So I've got 5 or 6 albums coming out this year. So it's going to
I
be.
got to give a quick shout out to Graham Carruthers because I forgot to
Oh
mention him in
yeah,
one of my album reviews. He's one of the great Boon Dogs. Tell me a little bit about Graham and his keyboard
Graham.
work.
Graham has sent us stuff like intense stuff, right? So we have to pick through it because he's just going for it. So it can't be all keyboards. So we pick out parts of Graham's work and puts in there. It'd be great to do a whole album where Graham is like the centerpiece guy, because he's really really good. Um, but because of the Boon Dogs and what we are, it's not so much driven by the B3 sound, but we want the B3 in. And Graham's been with us from the get go. I mean, he's fantastic. I think he's Canadian too, if I'm not mistaken.
You
I think a
might
lot of guys
be
are Canadian.
right. Yeah, you and the
Yeah,
Canadians have great connections.
yeah. I don't have any qualms with the Canadians. I don't know why they're so mad at me. But anyway,
Yeah.
I like Canadians. I like maple syrup. So
Yeah, there we go. You've collaborated with a lot of bands, a lot of other projects, did your solo work, collaborated with other bands and artists on other albums. What's kind of a highlight for you of collaborating on other projects outside of Bride?
well, I don't want to name any one band, but there's just been a couple of bands that's allowed me to just really go for it. And I
Yeah.
think some of my best vocal work has been on some of these collaborations. There's been some that I don't want anybody to hear. I won't name those either because I just thought my vocals were terrible and it wasn't their music. But I don't think I did my best work. I won't name them in case somebody's got them and like them.
Right.
Uh, but one of the albums that one of the projects that I really loved that I did was with Miles Barfield, which was Haunted No More, and to me this day those songs resonate because it's completely out of character for me to do those type of songs, and they're all low key, they're deep vocal, no high stuff, and basically stories and stuff.
You're a short story writer. I know you've got over 300 short stories or something that you've written. You're working on a publication deal. Tell me a little bit about that.
This morning, I finished my 403rd story. It's called Chatbox. Basically, about you put the essence of a person into a box, and then you can talk to them like they're alive. So my stuff's spooky and mystery and stuff like that. But I just signed a 3 album deal with Velox Books, so
Yeah.
those books will be out at the end of the year. I write for a podcast. They haven't featured me in recent weeks, but um, they will read my stories on their podcast, Scary Stories Told in the Dark. I've got two. I'm working with 2 screenwriters. One's a Hollywood screenwriter. The other guy's an independent, and we're going to do a couple of films. They're in the making now. The screenplays have been written and rewritten. So we've got 2 movies coming out. So that will
Nice.
be probably later next year. We're having actors read for it now for the part. So
Fantastic. What type of films are they?
the kind of spooky mystery, Black Mirror meets Twilight Zone type stuff
Nice.
with a creepy weird twist on the ends, and so you got to get the right actors. You got to get the most unnerving people you can find that can sell it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Oh, very
yeah.
cool. You've also done some painting, correct?
I did about 30 acrylic works. I brought about 15 of them with me
Nice.
back to the States.
Yeah.
Ones that really meant more to me. The rest I had to abandon. I couldn't afford to bring them back to the States. So yeah, and I'd like to get back into that. Today, my
Yeah.
wife and I are designing a new stage coat for me that she brought me. We're putting all the trinkets on it. So today we're doing our arts and craft later on.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
will that make its premiere at Immortal, I assume, or
Yes,
before that?
that's why we're building it. Yeah,
All
for
right.
just for Portal.
Awesome. Fantastic. Faith and creativity. Yeah, I like to talk a lot about that here at the Creative Christians channel. How does your faith, and I know we don't always think about these things so much, especially when it's innate, it's part of us, but how does your faith inform your creativity, whether it's music, writing, lyrics, short stories, whatever?
Everything that I do, whether I'm writing a horror story or writing a Christian song, I try to be as wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove, and inject that Christian message in there somewhere, so that if somebody's just say a casual reader, say is reading one of my stories, suddenly God appears in the story. So it brings him into the equation to say it's okay to talk about God, even if you're writing a horror story. So a lot of people who might have borderline faith or just haven't even considered it might have a wake up call if you inject it. And I put Bible verses in my stories. Of course, with writing songs, I'll write the song and then I'll turn it into a Christian song at that point, because you can't. I mean, I can't sit down and just write a Christian song. It sounds cheesy. So I'll
Right.
write a nice secular song, and I'm like, how does God fit into this story now? Because He does.
Right.
One of the key things that I have come to realize is that everybody in this world struggles and everybody has problems, and the world outside doesn't doesn't help. There's not a lot of real support for people, and especially people that don't ask for help.
Right.
So I tried to identify my own struggles with what other people might be going through, and taking their feelings into consideration, and what they might be enduring. I think I've been guilty in the past of just kind of saying, "Suck it up," you'll be okay. Suck it up. Be a man, or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you faced your own demons, and when you faced hardship, or you faced illness or sickness or whatever, you realize that when people out there ask for prayer, that's a big step, because when you start asking for prayer, you're really humbling yourself, saying, "I can't
Mm.
do this on my own.
Yeah.
I need some support." So I've tried to be sensitive to that when writing, because people people came to Jesus, and Jesus came to people, but you know there was this meeting in the middle. Everybody met. So so I want to introduce people to the Lord, but I also don't want to distance myself as a Christian, as an epistle of Jesus Christ. Uh, I don't want to distance myself from people by pretending I don't have any problems. So I think that one of the things that I try to do is to incorporate my questions into the songs, because I have the same questions that you might have. And I've been accused of being arrogant or prideful or a know-it-all and all that, but that's not the case. The truth of the matter is I'm still searching like everybody else, and I'm not opposed to change, and I'm not opposed to looking at things differently than I see them today. I believe that the things that I know now, that I truly know deep within my heart, they're solid, concrete facts. Jesus is Lord. He raised from the dead. Going to be a resurrection. Going to live with Him. I know that to be a fact. But a lot of the things that you think you know, when you start looking into the Bible, you look into the original language, you look into how they said things 2,000 years ago, or even 4,000 years ago, don't translate well into the English language, and it doesn't even mean what we think it means. So the deeper that I have probed and went into the Bible itself, the less I know, and the more I want to know, because I'm not Arabic. Didn't live 2,000 years ago, and those words were written for certain people at that certain time to be interpreted by us to apply to us today. So that's a lot of things to deal with. So I pretty much had to say at one point, I don't know anything. I need to start over. So, I feel like that as a Christian, I have so much more to learn, and I just want people to know that it's okay not to know everything. And you can fight for whatever belief you want, but just make sure that you know what you're talking about, and always remember that when you listen to me speak or write or sing, that I might be asking the questions because I don't have the answers. I'm waiting for the Lord to give me the answer. So maybe that's why I've posed the question.
Yeah.
So, admittedly, I don't know everything. So,
Yeah. I love that. And that's a great recognition of that we can all kind of be inspired from, because letting go of our pride, letting go of that God is the answer, Christ is the answer, that letting go of that control that we always want to seem to wrestle away from Him, and just say, Jesus, you're in control of all things. God, you're in control of all things. We need to recognize that and lean on You for everything in our lives, and it becomes so much more clear, even if we
true.
don't know all the answers in this life.
Well, we're trying to figure out who God is, and identify with Jesus, and we couldn't even tell you exactly how our televisions work that we use every single day. Most
Right.
people don't even know how a car works, and we drive them
Right.
every day. And
Right.
yet, you got people pretending to be experts on God.
Mhm.
It's it's hard for me to fathom that.
We don't think through and always reason about how we breathe, how we take a breath each second. We just trust it. We rely on that process, and yet we struggle so much with believing. Some of us with believing that there is a God out there, but yet,
Yeah,
He's created everything, including us.
yeah.
So, talk briefly here. Politics. You're outspoken politically. You don't apologize for that. We talked about that earlier a little bit, but how have some of the politics in recent years kind of been, I don't know, I guess a motivating factor for you to want to kind of step out and talk about that a little bit? I know some people worry about, I don't want to offend my fans. I don't want to, but Dale, you're just and why are you
Well,
confident in that?
I do struggle with that. I say too much.
Mm,
But when I see injustice and I see ignorance and I just see pure stupidity with liberals,
yeah.
the word liberal itself should tell any Christian you're not to be associated with them, come out from amongst them, and be separated because they're wanting to abort children, babies before they're born. They're wanting to change the sex of children. They're promoting homosexuals in a way that, if somebody's gay, that's their business, but do not shove it down our throats.
Mm,
Don't wave your flag in my face.
mm,
And me and Troy had a saying once: "We're as Christian as you want to be." So you wave a flag in my face, and you might get a fist in your face. I mean, that's just the way we are.
yeah.
So yeah, we can be as Christian as you want us to be, but they're over the top antics. Having a president at that time who was belligerent, had dementia, who didn't know what he was talking about, who was having electronic signatures. I mean, who allowed however many millions of immigrants into the country illegally. The word illegal should stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the bizarre policies of pulling out of Afghanistan. I could go on and
Oh,
on
yeah.
and on and on.
Yeah.
It made no sense. And I look at it like this: if Rosie O'Donnell and Whoopi Goldberg believe in anything, then I will believe the opposite. If they take a stance for anything, I will take the opposite.
Right.
And that pretty much guides me as my politics, because who wants to be associated with such trash and filth as
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood and all of that? They cater to weak-minded people who are easily manipulated by media, who absolutely, hey, step in, who absolutely, don't hit my cord, I'm recharging. Look who just stepped in.
Who's this? Hey, Troy.
How
Good to
you
see
doing?
you, man.
Yeah.
Welcome on.
It's a good thing he walked in right in my political rant, so that
Oh,
was
I
good.
know, that's perfect. Hey, we got a guest appearance from Troy Thompson here. I love it. Fantastic. How
you
you
guys,
doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. No problems at all.
Awesome.
Just watched another podcast with this comparing kinetic faith and snakes in the playground. I thought they were pretty insightful, so that was pretty cool.
Now
Yeah.
that's
So,
cool. That's a good comparison right around that same era there. So there's a
yep,
lot
yep,
of similarities between those two albums for sure.
yep. So
Well,
they said
looking for
snakes won out, so that's good.
yes. Ah, Snakes is still what I listened to Snakes just the other day on my vinyl again. Just I love that album. You guys, that is a
Yep, yep.
classic for a reason.
Well,
And
I thought
looking
I'd stop in
forward
and
to
say hi.
Vipers and Shadows. Yeah, good to see you, Troy. Thanks so much
Yeah,
for
yeah.
popping in.
Yep. We'll see you.
Any other future projects, or do we want to kind of collect all your upcoming stuff here? Just kind of one statement. What's ahead for Bride and for you?
Well, we've got the double album, of course, coming out with an EP, which we're going to pre-sell the EP, but we really wanted to premiere it at Immortal Fest, but we may end up not having any to premiere if we sell it.
Okay.
So that's a completely different genre that EP is. It's rock, but it's different than anything on the double. Of course, the Boon Dogs is going to be just like you expect the Boon Dogs to be. And
What's the
then
title of that one again?
Smoke and Mirrors.
Smoke and Mirrors. Okay.
Yeah, and I designed the album cover of that. Yes, it's AI, but everything out there is AI, so people needs to stop giving me grief over AI.
Exactly.
You're probably listening to songs that you love that's been written by AI, though I would never write a song AI.
That's
But
good.
yeah, or use the AI in my writings.
Right.
Um, but there's always this guy called the editor who is a physical AI who takes your work and he changes it anyway. So
Exactly.
I'm beginning to wonder what we're doing. But anyway, yeah, I mean it's and unfortunately the world will burn. Album. I didn't paint this one. I just don't have time to do it. So it's going to be the first one that I've come up with the album cover for that. And yes, it's AI, but it's my creativity, my idea. I put the
Right.
words in to create it. It took about 100 times before I got it where I wanted it.
Yeah.
So work did go into it.
That's cool.
Uh, yeah, and then Swingle and Thompson ordained.
Mhm.
Raphael did the artwork for that, so that's real artwork. Uh,
Nice.
I just get such grief over this whole artificial
I know.
intelligence thing. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
it's another tool, and we're all still learning how to kind of integrate it. So it's there's always a transition process with any tool, and yeah, this one it gets so much grief because so many people see it as very overreaching. But again, you learn to use it, you learn to develop it. Still takes a human behind it, even if it's just typing in a phrase or whatever. You still have to kind of work with it. So
I
I don't
guess I guess people thought Avatar was real actors. I don't know. It was a big hit. I don't know what people were. I mean, what were they real blue people? I don't know.
Yeah, really. Yeah, where did they come
Where was the
from?
outrage over that?
Exactly. Yeah, made $1 billion or whatever. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff ahead, definitely, Dale. Last question I got, I think, unless there's something you want to add after this, but why do you keep doing what you do? I mean, Bride still is trucking away. You're still doing great vocals on all sorts of projects. You're writing, you're painting, you're creating. Why do you do this, and why do you always strive to keep God at the center of whatever you're doing?
Well, the Lord is all I know. I mean, that's who I am. My identity is in Christ. I know who I am in God. So I can't be but what I am. But I have all these different outlets to be creative. Music is just another outlet. It's not necessarily my favorite. I enjoy writing short stories more than I do anything else. Um, and performing, I don't like the performing until I'm actually on the stage. I don't like the build up to it. I don't like afterwards. I just prefer being on stage and then disappearing. But you have an obligation to meet and greet and all that. But I don't know why I'm still doing music, because nobody's going to knock on our door and say, you know what, we just discovered you guys after 40 years. We've got $100 million contract. You're playing the Super Bowl. You're going to be at the Grammys this year, and man, you're going out on the road and you're headlining, and Metallica's opening for you. Nobody's going to say that. If we're lucky, it'll be like, uh, "Hello, is this Dale Thompson? Yeah, we've got a coffee house in Missouri. We got about 30 people that come to it on a Saturday night, on a good night. We can
Yeah.
give you pizza and gas money. What do you think? Does that sound fair? You know? Uh,
I hear you.
yeah. So I mean, I understand the reality of it. I mean, for some people, we're big rock stars or we're whatever. I told somebody the other day that we were a glorified rock band. He cursed me out. He told me I was full of pride and I was just being arrogant about it.
Oh
And
gosh.
yeah, I mean, these are the type of insanities I have to put up with. Like I write
Yeah.
something like in general, and people take it personally. Like I put their name in there. It's like I wasn't thinking of you. Reminds me of that time that this homeless guy knocked on John Lennon's door,
Uh,
saying, "John, you wrote this song about me personally." And John's like, "I don't even know you.
hmm
I wasn't thinking about you when I wrote this song."
Right.
Same difference.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that everybody that is in this Christian field, because we seem to tend to, especially metal and Christian, we tend to draw the crazies. I think that I think they all. I think everybody from Ray Pera to Les Carlson to whoever uh, probably have to deal with the insanity of people thinking
Hmm.
that we're something that we're not and expecting so much out of us when we're only human.
Yeah.
You know,
Does
and I
that reality help to kind of humble you and keep you focused on God too? I mean, dealing with some of that.
well, it does because I have the same issues as everybody else has. I don't get any special treatment. If I need something, I have to pay for it. Nobody gives it to me. I have to get car insurance like everybody else. I'm trying to sell a house in New Zealand right now, and I'm not
Oh,
having any luck at that. So I go through the same struggles and the same emotions, uh, and to be honest, in probably the last 4 months, it has been a very depressing time in my life because of the move to the States, thinking it was going to be grander than it was, the amount of money that I have put into the move and how much money I've lost and how much money I'm going to lose on the sale of my house because we've had to really reduce the price down. We're getting to the nitty gritty now. We're going to give it away basically.
mm,
So there's no money left over to buy a new house with. So that leaves me and my wife in limbo. What are you going to do?
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, people don't take any of that consideration that we all go through the same thing that everybody else does. I mean, even the car I
yeah,
drive, my dad gave me his car and bought a new one so I'd have a car to drive. You
yeah.
know, I mean, I've
What?
never seen the righteous forsaken or the seed begging bread. And we're not asking to be rich. We're just waiting for the tide to turn a little to, you know,
Yeah.
to get on with it.
What gives you hope right now as you're going through this season?
I just think that there's bigger things that I don't see ahead. I think that God has a plan that I have not been privy to, and I probably would ruin it if I knew the detail of it. So that's why He's not telling me. So I think things will happen in their own time. I always believe that it doesn't have anything to do with luck or anything. It's just the promises that we have in the Bible that He'll never leave us nor forsake us. He's with us always, closer than a brother, and I hold on to that truth. It's not hope, and I don't have to have faith in it. It's truth. It's an absolute. So when it's all said and done, um, things are going to work out, my life or whatever. And I just think that God will be glorified in it, and I'll have a greater testimony. I mean, I don't mind going through odd times and hard times and all this, and I do have a roof over my head and food on the table, so it's not that bad. I would rather it be my roof, than somebody else's, because you don't want to feel like a moocher. So, so
Well, it's a good thing it's your brother. You guys are close,
yeah,
so that's pretty awesome. Well, Dale, thanks so much for coming on today and chatting. We'll keep you and Troy, of course, your families in our prayers going forward. Look forward to all these projects. The new bride, I'm so excited about. The new Boon Dogs, I'm so excited about. All these other projects we talked about, looking forward to. But I really appreciate you coming on today and chatting so much about all these things. As we get closer maybe to those film projects, I'd love to maybe have you back on and talk just specifically about kind of the film angle of things, maybe get more deeper into even just creative writing. That's another aspect that's very fascinating and near and dear to my heart too. So we can chat more about that as we get closer to those things.
you might be interested how I'm inspired on how I come up with these stories and have become so prolific in writing. So we can get into that next time.
That'd
I've
be
kind of got
awesome.
my own system, so
Yeah, I'd love to dig deep into that sometime. That'd be fascinating just to kind of isolate some of that and talk about that specifically. So I'd love to do that. But man, thanks so much, Dale. Really appreciate you being on today. This has been awesome.
thank you.